Welcome back to Mountaintop Repair Shop. Now, this episode features the Roland Juno 60, and there's probably going to be a few episodes on this one. There's a lot to do on this keyboard. Got it years ago from a friend of mine who gave it to me as payment. He was wondering if I could fix his Roland Juno 60, and he had a parts keyboard donated to him, and he said, fix my keyboard and you can have the parts keyboard. I changed a board over here because he was the one missing the release knob. So he had some broken keys and a missing release on his keyboard, so I swapped a couple keys, gave him some better looking ones, even though these ones are pretty hammered, the ones that came on this keyboard. So I've already done a few things that I did back when this happened, probably about 20 years ago. These switches were all missing. That's why they're black instead of silver. I ended up getting the black replacement switches. The side end panels were destroyed. We sprayed this texture on here after giving them some shape and kind of cleaning up all the peeling edges and whatnot. And this piece was also very rusted as well, and so we just gave the texture to that one as well. But it's time to restore this thing to its former glory. The texture's going away, and we're probably going to make a whole new case for this thing. But there's going to be a few videos, like I said. We still need a few more parts. My high pass frequency, I can't get that one yet. That one, no one seems to have it. I also need a frequency slider and a release because I lost that. Also, the volume control, it sounds terrible and it shouldn't be able to move like this. I also need a transpose button. And I'll need another slider cap for here. And I need a spring for this missing key because I'm pretty sure it's not in there anymore. I put together a little order last night from Synthesizer.com. These guys out of Texas, they have lots of vintage parts, and they are constantly working on stuff and making some cool videos, apparently. I found one this morning. It was really good. It was on the Yamaha CS80. It was 40 minutes and I'd watch it again. So I put in an order for all those parts, but I already put in an order from Keyboard Country on eBay to get me some keys to get started with. So step one on this project is we're going to take apart the keyboard here, and we're going to just clean it completely, replace the broken keys. I got there's quite a few of these with the chipped front, or they were glued back together again, or entirely missing. We're going to clean all those up and get them working. Also, this half of the keyboard doesn't work so well. But, of course, the first thing we're going to do is plug this thing in and listen to all the errors it has. Also, one other thing I ordered from Synthesizer was this bender wheel. I've never seen in person a Juno 60 or 6 with the bender knob stem in place. It's always been missing like this. Even on the one that I fixed for a friend of mine years ago, I couldn't give him a good one because he didn't have a good one, I didn't have a good one. And I have a Juno 6, it doesn't have one either. Some of these parts are sourced from the original, and they actually, like this transpose key, is 3D printed and polished, so we'll see how some of the new parts and the old parts look. And this is going to be exciting. But anyways, this is part one, the keyboard cleaning. First off, I noticed there's some static that sounds a little like overmodulation. I was thinking that this could be a side effect from the extremely noisy volume pot, so I just ignored it and pressed on with the test. Ah yes, the frequency knob, of course, making and losing contact with just a little wiggle. I knew that one would make it on the list. Okay, well, there's an issue. This keyboard is old enough to have direct metal contacts on the keys instead of the carbon contacts on a polymer strip like most of the mid-80s keyboards. So we're going to be cleaning some key contacts. I'll make a list of faulty keys with this blue tape real quick. It is time to dissect. Now I can take out the 4 end cap screws that hold the top panel in place. Right in the middle here, there is a standoff support that tends to catch the circuit board when you open these, so you have to reach inside and pull the metal bar towards you. That way the similarity of opening up a car hood is complete. I'll start by removing the connectors on the sound generation board. Then I'll remove the screws, and then the entire board so I can set it safely aside. Next up, I'll remove the key bed screws from underneath. We've already pulled its connection on the soundboard, so it's only connected to a ground at this point. I'll just get that right now. So here's a quick look at how this metal key contact works. There's a silver bar going across all of the keys. These are connected to the circuit board neutral rail via these white insulated wires. The positive connection for each note is connected to a copper leaf spring extending to the bottom tab of the corresponding key. When the key is pressed, contact is made between the silver rod and the copper leaf spring. At this point, the circuit is closed and the note is played. At this angle, you can see how those copper springs move when I press the keys. Looking from this angle, you can really see how dirty these keys are. The later ones were chip keys I replaced on my friend's Juno. I cleaned the ones I took off this one, but I never did the rest because I never used this key bed. I pulled the one out of my Juno 6 and put it in here back when I was using this one regularly. Alright, I gotta pull off these keycaps if I want the circuit board to come off, so we'll do that real quick. That standoff is still there catching despite the absence of a keyboard. Now I can get these two control surface circuit boards right where I can easily remove them. Just a few screws, and there's quite a bit of zip-tied wire harness. I'd better remove the other board screws, then I'll figure out the mystery of the wired connections. Now it's time to snip some zip ties. We can separate the two control boards by pulling these connectors in between them. All of the harnesses from all directions come into one superhighway of wire right here. We'll need to cut some more of these zip ties to free up the harnesses that are connected to the boards that we are trying to completely remove. I'll remove these connections at the bender panel and the chorus board underneath. There's still another connection on the output panel. Now I have the wires free, and this control board is finally disconnected. A couple more connections and I can get the second control surface board removed. Well, almost. This harness is connected to a socket on this board, so one more zip clip and that one's off. If you take a glance along this short plane, you can see the board is pretty warped. A curve in favor of the control surface. Not exactly what I was expecting. Now it's time to pull the bender panel. I remember spraying this Flexstone texture on the bottom because of how badly scratched up it was. I'll pull off this last wire. Just like the keyboard, it's tethered to a ground strap. I'll remove that and disassemble the bender panel. A few screws on the bottom and a couple on the top, and the circuit board is out. The bender wheel is connected to this potentiometer with a set screw. The potentiometer has a larger range than the bender wheel, so it's important to get it lined up right in the center of the field. Oh, look at that, huh? Now that's nice stuff. The line on the top of the potentiometer shaft should be perpendicular to the stem of the bender wheel. I can see here now that the volume pot is missing the nut that secures it to the metal holder, so it's only held by the solder joints on the circuit board, and no surprise, they are cracked and making poor contact. It explains why the volume knob moves so much. Most Roland keyboards from this era have a plastic strip that is glued to the bottom of the key bed. The keys just click into the back of the key bed, and the springs hold them in place. This plastic is installed after the keys, so you can't pull them forward and remove them from the key bed. Next step is to remove all of the key springs. Now to remove all of the keys. The white keys have to come off first. Once they're out of the way, then there is adequate space for the black keys to be removed. Now we're down to the metal keybed frame. All of the grossness that has fallen between the keys over the last 40 years is now on display. Not to mention some hideous blob that ran down the frame while the keyboard was standing on its end, probably leaning against a wall, possibly someplace hot. I'll gather all these nasty keys in a plastic tub and we'll deal with them later. Now it's time to clean some areas on the soundboard with some alcohol. There is some sticky residue that is on this board, and it has really collected along this bottom edge. First, a good 15 minutes of soaking in this hot soapy water. Now I'm going to scrub all of these keys one by one. This ends up taking quite a while. I use a toothbrush and a Scotch-Brite pad. Well, to make things worse, I didn't realize these weren't the non-scratch pads, and I had to polish the keys with rubbing compound one by one afterwards. Now to attack this key bed frame. I hit with a vacuum first to see if I can loosen up any of this grossness. Then I'll turn to a nice blunt object, followed by some alcohol and a rag. Next we can flip over this key bed and get these key contacts cleaned. These Q-tips are a little bit too thick, so I'll compress them with some pliers so they'll actually fit between these key contacts. After that is complete, we can put all of the keys back in. Black keys first. Getting all of the black keys in their proper positions will also give you a little map as to where all the white keys are going to go, because all the black keys are the same and there's several different white keys. I'm also adding a touch of white lithium grease right here on the key, right where it comes in contact with the copper leaf spring. I'll take a moment to connect the key springs to all of these black keys so they don't fall out of place. Now I can move on to the white keys. Their point of contact is right here, so we'll add some grease right on this spot. Then I'll install all of the keys that I've cleaned. So there are still these few keys not here. These are the keys that needed replacing. To be fair, some of these keys are a little chipped or scratched, but I put those furthest to the outside, and I purposely filled in the center last because I have these new keys from keyboard country. I wanted the middle of the board to look and feel its best. After all, that is where most of the playing happens. Now I need that key spring I ordered, because I was one spring short when we started this. With the keyboard complete, I can now move on to replacing these bad slide potentiometers. First up, the release pot with the missing stem. I'll have to desolder these leads first. Now I can flip over the board and pull out the old slide pot. These new slide pots that I got from Syntar need to have their leads bent outwards ever so slightly to fit properly. They have a great video that explains just how to put them in. And now we can solder these into place. Now to the other control board for the frequency pot. We'll make the same adjustments to the new pot leads and then solder that one into place. Well, it looks like this high-pass slide pot that I couldn't even get has cold solder joints. So I'll reflow those joints real quick. Maybe we didn't even need a new high-pass slider at all. That would be excellent if it was just a poor connection. Okay, now it's time to clean off the flux with a quick alcohol scrubbing. With all of that complete, the control surface boards can be reinstalled. Remember, always reassemble with a hand-driven screwdriver. This little foam rubber came loose, so a little super glue should hold it to the two slide pots on the bender board where it goes. Then I can screw the whole bender board back together. A nice close look at the volume pot contacts shows we'll have to do a little soldering here as well. I'll just remove the old solder, add flux, and then resolder these 6 connections. Then, I'll finish off with an alcohol scrub. Now it's time to add some zip ties and start building the superhighway again. These wires can plug back into the bender board. Reinstallation of the soundboard is next. There are plenty of things to plug into this board. And now we can screw it down securely in place. And now we can screw it down securely in place. Another thing I have on the list is to replace the power cord. It was replaced with a small 18 gauge cord, and I want to bring it back up to the 14 gauge cord it used to have. So we'll get to desoldering the hot and neutral connections, and I'll have to unscrew this ground. Next, we can take a pair of pliers and compress the wire grommet and push it right out of the case. You can see here how the old cord had a heat shrink to make the wire big enough to even catch the tooth in the grommet. I'll hold the two next to each other to get the grommet in approximately the same place on the new cord. The new cord has a different wire color scheme, but that's no big deal to me. Blue is neutral, while brown is hot, which is strange for United States AC colors, but yellow with a green stripe is pretty common for ground. And I just grabbed the terminal off the old cord and re-crimped it onto this ground. And now we'll do a quick soldering followed up by a cleaning. Now it's time for some of the final zip ties, just to tighten up the wires and keep them from moving too much when this is opened. A few screws in the key bed, and then we can screw the control panel back to the end caps. We can put all of the fader caps back, including the new one that I bought from Synthesizer. Now let's power it up. Well, it lights up and appears to be functioning. We'll do a complete test, but I believe we'll do that in part 2. Well, I'd say this video's gone long enough. So this will be the end of part 1. Join us again for part 2, which I'm currently working on. As you can see here, I have the old end caps for the Juno 60. As I said in the beginning of this video, the texture is going away. So I've already fabricated 2 new hardwood end caps. I've also fabricated a bender panel complete with print. Keep an eye out for that video and other videos coming up soon. For now, I'd like to thank you all for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.